Good morning and welcome to the February Downtown Aviation Economy and Innovation Subcommittee. I'm Daniel Valenzuela, Phoenix City Councilman for District 5, and I'm honored to chair this subcommittee and to work with my colleagues to my right, Councilwoman Thelda Williams, and to my left, Vice Mayor Laura Pastor, and to her left, Councilman Michael Nowakowski. So the first item of this subcommittee, just like the last item of this subcommittee, is always a call to the public. It's just a reminder that the public has the first and the last word. And of course, if you have any comments between or on any particular item, you could just fill out a yellow card and you'll have an opportunity to share your thoughts as well. That said, we don't have any cards for that first call to the public. We'll move on to the minutes of the meeting, the approval for January 17th.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, the consent agenda, the consent items are items 2 through 9, but items 2 and 6 have been pulled for comment, correct? 2, 4, and 6.
And I would like to pull item 7.
6 and 7.
Okay, I move approval of the remainders.
Okay, so the
Second.
motion would be for items 3, 5, and 8. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll move on to item 2. Yeah, can I get a motion for item 9?
Move
Move
approval.
approval. Second.
Motion and a second for item 9. Should have included that in the consent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, great. Thank you for catching that, Ed. How you doing, John?
Councilman Nowakowski.
Oh, Councilman.
All right,
Nowakowski.
so item number 2, I'm just wondering if there's a percentage of local business participation in that RFP. I know that we worked really hard about 10 years ago to make sure that we had local participation at the airport when it comes to food and beverage. We just want to make sure that at our convention center, we have the same, right?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman, Mr. Chair, and members of the subcommittee. As part of the qualifications or the evaluation criteria, on the second page of the staff report, we have the key 5 key criteria that will be evaluated as part of this process. And to your specific question, Councilman, under the business plan category, local business participation will be one of the evaluation criteria considered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We don't, or Vice Mayor, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I was just looking for the local participation and in item 2, that's all. I see qualifications, but I don't know. A local business the business plan, the local participation plan. So that, when you say local business participation, what does that mean?
Local business participation generally means a local restaurateur operator that could come in as a subcontractor underneath the proposed service provider. And so it would be the number and quantity and quality of private local subcontractors that would be a part of the proposing team.
Okay. Councilman Nowakowski, is that what you were asking?
I think, I just want to guarantee that there is some type of
A small business?
correct aspect in it.
Okay. Thank you.
You want to move approval?
Yes.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving on to item 5.
On 4, but I think it's for approval.
I'm sorry, what was that, Penny?
Did we pull
I'm sorry.
it? I move approval. I think it's in support.
All right. Item 4, parking management services request issue for proposals. We have a,
I'm
we
not
have a
really-
motion. Do we have a
Second.
second? We have a motion and a second. We do have one card. Morris Clark? Welcome, sir. Each speaker will get 2 minutes, just for the sake of fairness and wanting to make sure everyone has a chance to speak. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Valenzuela. My name is Morris Clark. I am President and CEO of Nationwide Parking, and I am a minority company, parking company, and I just wanted to say this. I felt compelled to recognize the staff for putting together an instrument that I feel allows us some fairness and our ability to compete for the RFP, and I wanted to just compliment them on a job well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clark. I know Mr. Bennett's not used to.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
You did something
He's used to
right.
getting all kinds of accolades. Thank you so much. Definitely, what a great.
Mr. Bennett, please comment. No, just joking.
Thanks, Mr. Bennett. Thank you, sir.
Move approval?
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
7?
No, 6.
Oh, 6.
Now moving on to item 6, rental car, center food and beverage concession, request to issue revenue contract solicitation. Councilman Nowakowski?
You know, for the last 10 years, I've been a big advocate making sure that we had minority and small business participation, especially local businesses. And this RFP, there's nothing really in here, sort of like what we just discussed with the convention center. There was actually local participation verbiage in the RFP. Here, there's nothing at all. There's no points, no any type of advantagement of having local business participation. Is there a way, somehow, some way to put in the management, marketing, operational plan where you have up to 250 votes to include some type of percentage of local participation in that RFP?
Mr. Chair, to Mr. Nowakowski, yes, absolutely, we can put something in there. It would be consistent with all of the other proposals that we put out for the concessions program at Sky Harbor, so it won't be any different. So I apologize if it's not in there, but when the solicitation goes out, it will be.
Now, is there a certain percentage of participation for local business in those RFPs? If you can refresh my memory, please.
No.
Mr. Chair, to Mr. Nowakowski, we're not required to have an exact percentage. It is something that we encourage because of our disparity plan for ACDBE and small business. We absolutely encourage it.
So when we encourage someone, that means that they don't really get those extra points for having small business, local business? Is that correct?
A
or-
minority, a woman.
Right. By federal law, we
Mr.
can't.
Chairman, to Councilman Nowakowski. As Ms. Madsen has indicated, you know, our solicitations are governed by our FAA requirements, and we have a race and gender neutral program at Sky Harbor due to findings of the disparity study that was done some years ago. So we encourage it, but we're not in a position to be able to use that as a particular scoring instrument in the solicitations. And I think the industry understands that our desire to have local participation. And in the instant here for this particular concession, this is just one small concession stand. So it's not like the Terminal 4 where you have these very large proposers. This is just one very small concession stand.
Oh, no, I understand that. About 10 years ago, Michael Johnson and myself, we really argued this to the T. And I believe that that's the reason why now we have such a great airport with great restaurants that are local restaurants there that people, when they fly into the city of Phoenix, they really comment on the good food that we have. And I think that there's something, I'm not sure if we have legal counsel here seeing if there is a percentage that we could put down, because I think that leaving it up for a selection committee, it's just really,
We can come back.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Nowakowski, just talking here, we can continue this for a month and get more detail around what we can and can't do,
That'd be great.
so you have full information as you make a decision.
And so we have, it doesn't harm the timeline of what we're trying to accomplish, and we can come back and make sure there's clarity and, okay. Vice Mayor, do you have a question?
Yes, I think one of the key items and why, reasons why former council colleagues looked at different ways of the contracts was because of really having a reflection of our community and diversity within large corporations versus small corporations versus local small businesses. But in addition to that, I understand the research on the FAA. I also want to know what the federal contracts, because we're, at the end of the day, we fall under federal, and the federal contracts are very different from that. And so I think we, as a council, can then determine how we would like to move forward regarding the contracts. FAA is only one entity, but the rest are bundled the way they're bundled or written the way they're written to include that. So I would like to have a further discussion or knowledge as to why we operate the way we're operating today. So.
Okay, so do we need a motion to bring this back, or can we just?
You should just move to continue it to, I'm not sure what, your next meeting in March.
The March subcommittee?
I move to continue this item until our next subcommittee meeting, and I think it's going to be March 7th. Yeah.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And moving on to item 7.
Yes.
How you doing, Chris? Authorization to sign and amend city contract 135145 for development of 200 West Monroe Street. Vice Mayor?
In looking at the development of the contract, what is in the contract is that I know that there's several references to CED. What I would like to see in the contract is that there's also to amend the contract to include planning and development. Planning and development to me is very key in a lot of these contracts due to all the downtown codes, the WOOP codes, shaded areas, shade plan, all the different plans that we have. And I think that's, as we're building downtown, that they be included in the conversation to know exactly if we're doing it correctly or if we're not. And I'd rather have them in the forefront than come back and say this hasn't happened. So that's
Madam Vice
just
Mayor,
my-
that's a great catch. We will make that modification as it moves on to formal and add that into the information that comes forward to you.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. We do have 2 cards.
I'm to make a motion.
Yeah, sure, we can
Okay.
entertain a motion if you'd like to do that before the cards.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah. No.
No, I'm
Okay. All right.
waiting for you to
I
make a
move.
motion.
Okay. I move to approve the contract with amended stipulation of adding planning and development.
And I second it. I'm delighted to see this moving forward.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We do have 2 cards. Mr. Brent Kleinman. Welcome, Brent. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am excited to see an empty lot and get buildings on it. Obviously, this has been empty for some time and not being used. But my concern is the stipulations and the benefits that have been given to the 200 West Monroe property were given in 2012 at a time where we were pretty much in a financial crisis, just coming out of things, and had to give quite a bit away to get what we're getting. And it seems to me, looking at what we are now offering a brand new developer in 2018, might be a little bit too much. I think we could make a better deal with the new developers as far as the GIPLETs, the tax benefits, and everything we are giving to develop this property. With everything that's happening on Van Buren, between the Van Buren and Central Avenue, this is a prime location now in downtown Phoenix. And their time frame in which, as far as building this out, they don't seem to have any serious rush to it. And the money that we're giving them to do this seems like more than we need to as a city of Phoenix right now. So I just ask that we consider re-looking at what we are giving this developer to maintain and follow through on a 2012 commitment when it's 2018. Thank you very much.
Great point, Mr. Fleming.
Chairman, members of the subcommittee, to address the items that were just mentioned, we did, as we began working with this developer, we went back to the initial development agreement, did our research, brought in all the new information, all the new data, bringing the information current to 2018. So Deputy Director Eric Johnson, who's with me today, and his team and I did a deep dive into the investment that this group will be making on the site. This is a high-rise residential development, and as we've looked at how this has an opportunity to move forward, we did peel everything back into the new market and did come to the same conclusion that without the participation from the development agreement, which is already in existence today and approved by the council in 2012, this project won't be built. As we're looking, this is pulling downtown further to the west along Van Buren in areas that have been more challenged for redevelopment, and we think it's instrumental in being able to move that through. Just as a couple of rough examples, as we look at the proposed project and the term that's available, we look at a revenue from the construction tax of the project will be over $2 million in one-time funds. If we look at our annual rental tax, we'll see nearly $275,000 to the city of Phoenix. We'll see an annual excise tax that they'll pay of over $1 million, and total lease rental payments over the 25-year period of time of more than $17.6 million. So this is on the new GIPLET, so it's not as beneficial as the old GIPLET was. This is much more money to the school district, much more money to all the individuals they have. We've had conversations with the school districts, and our staff would recommend moving this forward.
Okay. No. Do you have more?
I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, no, we're still in public comment. Okay, sorry.
Well, I have one more card.
Yeah.
But marked in favor, the applicant, Ms. Nick Wood, willing to speak if necessary. Now, you can hold off, or you can speak. What would you like to do, Mr. Wood? Okay. We have a motion and a second on this, yeah.
I'd like to comment.
Okay. Councilman Nowakowski?
This is a project that I've been working on for a long time, and one of the things is we've gotten some stakeholders along the west side of Van Buren, and what you can see right now is all that hard work coming to fruition, and it's really these types of programs. I think this project right here is really just going to be opening up that whole west side of Van Buren and just really building out that 7th Avenue and all the way to 7th Street on the Van Buren side of it. We've gotten the entertainment now down locked, and I think we really need some more businesses and some housing. So this is going to be a great opportunity for us to have that, and I just really want to thank our staff for all their hard work, and also for the developer to deal with all the hiccups that we had with the community and really reaching out and doing what the community really wanted. So thank you all. And I'll be supportive of this project.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments before we get to the vote? Vice Mayor?
Chris, there was a GIPLET placed on this in 2012.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when the property is, I guess, sold to another owner, then there's dialogue about the GIPLET being on the property. So my understanding is that, in our dialogue, is that we went back, you looked at all the elements of the original GIPLET, made sure that it could fall in line with what was asked then, and then re-looked at, analyzed the numbers, and then reformulated recalculated how the GIPLET was going to affect the community and the project.
Chairman, Vice Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, and so what I'm hearing is that with all that, it's still, I'm going to use the term pencils out, in the way that it benefits the city.
Chairman Vice Mayor, that is correct. It still does offer a benefit to the city that we think would not happen without this program.
Okay, my understanding is also there's going to be a community space.
That is correct. The entire ground floor is community space. It's open. Think of it as market and wine bars and breweries and landing space and incubator space where offices and activities could happen. Further, the pool floor is also community and public space. So this is a building that will be very porous to the community, meaning that it will allow people to come in. It won't act as a barrier to our entire downtown community enjoying the space.
Okay. One more question, and I should have asked it yesterday. Is there any type of workforce or affordability in this project?
Chairman, Vice Mayor, in this program, there is not. It wasn't negotiated in 2012, and as we looked at the other benefits that would happen out of this project, the community benefits being that open ground floor space, being the public amenities, the public space for others to fall into, that fell more in line with the community benefit that was coming out of this, as opposed to the workforce or affordable housing in this particular project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So we have a motion and a second. Let's go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much. All right, we are now moving on to item 10. Aviation Department 5-year Capital Improvement Program.
Mr. Chair, that item is an information-only item, so
Okay.
we're available to answer questions if there are any, but
I believe
there is no-
everyone received an update, so if my colleagues have any questions, I'll ask Mr. Bennett up. If not, we'll move on to item 11. We good? All right, item 11, authorization to enter into development agreement with Vision Gate.
Ms. Mackey will.
Yeah,
presentation.
where's Ms. Mac-
Teach me to whisper, I apologize.
We got some exciting business to get to here.
We do, I apologize for that. Good morning, Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Chris Mackey, Community and Academic Development. With me here today is Scarlett Spring. Scarlett Spring is the president of Vision Gate, which is a very exciting company that's located here in Phoenix. We're here today to talk to you about an exciting Phoenix company who has committed to growing here in this market. In 2010, the company didn't relocate here from Seattle, but brought their activities here from Seattle on our biosciences campus here in the downtown market. They were a fledgling, early stage biosciences company at the time with a concept and an idea. At that time, the city of Phoenix did make an investment in this early stage company, which was incredibly visionary. We purchased 2 pieces of equipment so they could do their research and validation of their product. Since that time, that validation has happened. They are now a fully commercialized company. We have received those 2 pieces of equipment back. They are here at City Hall, and we will be working with this council to donate them to Biosciences High School or Community College, one of our other opportunities. When we look at the #1 cancer killer in the world, it's lung cancer. And our problem is by the time that anyone shows symptoms of lung cancer, which is typically a cough, it's too late. You're at stage 3 or stage 4, and treatment is not possible. When it can be arrested or caught in early stage 1, chances of survival are much greater. What Vision Gate has worked towards and now has FDA approval is a sputum test that can detect early stage lung cancer in individuals and move forward with treatment. So we're excited to have such a great company here in Phoenix and committed to growing in Phoenix. As we move forward, biosciences are one of the areas in Phoenix where we're still in our teenagerhood. So we don't have as significant a workforce as you see in Seattle or North Carolina or San Diego or other very sophisticated biosciences markets. So we work closely with the community college and other educational institutions to train our workforce and with our companies. So what staff is proposing today is a development agreement with Vision Gate that would require them to maintain their corporate headquarters and their research and development here in Phoenix. They are currently located in District 6 at 52nd Street and Elliott. Again, they've spun out of the incubator and are now commercialized and are hiring employees. They would agree to create up to 125 new high-wage jobs in our market. What staff would propose for council consideration as the city's commitment is that we pay $1,000 a job in arrears for jobs that are trained and hired with Vision Gate. So they'd hire them in year 1 and train them. In year 2, we'd reimburse them. In year 2, we'd reimburse for those jobs in year 3, and so forth and so on. But more importantly, one of the items that we've been working on closely with this council is with our Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding and being able to launch our Opportunity Youth, our MBK, our dislocated workers, and retraining them in biosciences, in med tech, in lab tech, and biotech fields. So we would propose to also work with them in our on-the-job training programs, which can work with our young workforce, and our incumbent worker training programs. So for those people that are already hired at Vision Gate, being able to continue their training so they stay cutting edge and here in Phoenix. This is a program that you've seen economic development bring forward a number of times as we're growing our strong science and technology workforce here in Phoenix. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions, and Ms. Spring is here to answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mackey. We don't have cards, so I'll open it up to my colleagues for any questions or comments that you may have.
I have a, is there a cap on the number of employees that they can be reimbursed for, or that one, how much training they could have? Is there a cap there?
Chairman, Councilmember Williams, we have put a cap of $250,000 on their entire program. So that would be in the letter of intent that we would execute and the further development agreement, we would have a cap of $250,000, which is already accounted for in the Strategic Economic Development Fund. We are holding that in place should the council consider to move this forward. So nothing would come from the general fund.
I think this is very exciting, and we're thrilled to see not only success, but the expansion. So I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I just want to say a few words. I believe the first time I met Ms. Spring, we were at Fire Admin, and you brought some subject matter experts from the fire service to talk about lung cancer, and so that was one of the early partners, and then we continue to cross paths. Obviously, CEI is where you started, and you know, it's exciting. I just visited your current location, and what's incredibly exciting here is we're talking about the biosciences in Phoenix. A few years ago, think of where the drivers of our economy were and was, and they're very, very important sectors, right? Tourism and real estate and construction, incredibly important sectors. But, you know, in order to diversify our economy, this is what it takes. It takes local government working with the private sector, working with educators, and so on. And now what we have are different economic drivers: healthcare, information technology, advanced manufacturing, and it's also what we also need to keep in mind is the effort to keep that workforce here, and you know, which is why we have a thriving downtown, and we're focused on local businesses and those kinds of things. It all comes together. I tell people that if your kid gets their education and decides to move to Denver, which is a great city, it should be because they love to ski, not because they're chasing their dream job. And so Scarlett, you're keeping a lot of our students and talent here, and you're making us a better city for it. So I'm very excited for this partnership and for your leadership, and for this thriving workforce that we're going to continue to develop to attract more high-wage jobs here in Phoenix.
If I may,
Please.
Councilman Valenzuela, thank you so much. It has been a really wonderful partnership that we've had with the city of Phoenix. As Chris mentioned, we actually originally went into the TGen building. We have actually been at the Gateway Community College Incubator, Center for Entrepreneurial Innovation, and now we have permanent space, 16,000 square feet, soon to be 20,000 square feet in the Phoenix Tech Park. In that time, I was employee number 1 in Phoenix back in 2010, and today we have 45. We pay an average salary of $75,000. Now, I'm proud of that from the standpoint of being able to have an economic development, because I care very much about high-wage jobs and what we're doing in our city. But sometimes it's hard if you're writing the check for those jobs, certainly if you have to go out and raise that money. But that's a part of putting a company into the commercial space. And we look to be commercial this year. We will continue to give back and work with the firefighter community. We will be looking forward to offering this non-invasive test for early detection of lung cancer into the market, but we won't be done there. Our platform will enable us to go into other cancers, and we'll look forward to doing that. The last thing is we now have added a drug to our portfolio, and we hope to be one of the successes that Chris and I can come back and tell you about, that what we have done over these 8 years and what we'll do in the next 2 years, we hope to come back and actually have that be one of the success stories.
Wonderful.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. Thank you. We have a motion. Oh, Vice Mayor? Do you have a?
I'm just excited about the workforce part and excited about the training, the expansion, obviously, but with that, I think that's one of the great pieces of this program. I guess program, I'll call it program, only because it's training of the future and we're building our workforce. And so I think it's critical that we build our workforce and have those in the pipeline for jobs to come.
We're so happy to be working with ASU and the biodesign team and the bioengineers. We've actually had 6 different interns, and of that have hired 2 of them permanently. So it's really been a very good program for us to get some of the young talent and develop them within our organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So on the table, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 12. Now, this was a continued item from January 17th, 2018. I know that the discussion in January was that we are sort of on a timeline, but we had the time to allow you to go back and work on some clarification, a few other things to bring forth in hopes to have action today. It certainly is my hope here. So, Mr. Bennett, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, and thank you for this opportunity to further discuss the West Ground Transportation Center with you. Mr. Chairman, as you indicated at last month's meeting, you requested that we come back today with our overall plan for the West Ground Transportation Center, as well as expand our proposal to include commercial, hotel, and retail opportunities. And so today I'll briefly review our overall plan for the airport as well as the West Ground Transportation Center. Jay DeWitt, our Deputy Aviation Director for Financial Management, will discuss the process that we've undergone to date as well as the options for the concession. And then Larry Belinsky, our financial advisor from Frasca and Associates, will discuss the recommended option. So unless you have any immediate questions, we'll proceed. So as we discussed last month, Sky Harbor's parking, commercial facilities, and services are very heavily biased in favor of the residents of the East Valley. We have 9,500 on-airport economy parking spaces on the east side, but there are nearly 8,000 off-airport parking spaces in the State Route 143 and 44th Street corridor, as well as numerous off-airport hotels, commercial buildings, and retail. However, on the west side of the airport, we have very few parking space options available or commercial facilities and services for the residents of Phoenix and the West Valley. So as our airport development progresses to the west and the final stage of the SkyTrain connecting to the rental car center, the completion of the T3 renovation and expansion, as well as the demolition of Terminal 2, we will lose the 3,700 west side parking spaces. We feel there's a need to replace those west side parking spaces, as well as provide similar commercial, hotel, and retail opportunities for the residents of Phoenix and the West Valley. There's an opportunity to replace them and provide some new services for the residents of the West Valley at the new West Ground Transportation Center of the SkyTrain. And this is located at a small site-constrained parcel at the corner of 24th Street and Buckeye Road. Now, the West Ground Transportation Center only has about 5 acres available for non-parking development. Land use concepts for the 24th Street and Buckeye site are driven by a variety of factors. The site's proximity to the freeway system, arterial roads, and terminal area, combined with the SkyTrain extension, provides, we believe, a unique opportunity for a multimodal transportation center. Now, the site has limitations for land uses, as its proximity to the runways means there are height limitations, there are noise impacts, and of course it's next to airfield safety areas, including our runway protection zone, which is indicated by that yellow dashed line at the bottom of that picture. And all of those factors must be considered when we develop that site. Other considerations are the freeway access improvements, and those are indicated by those white arrows on the slide. Those freeway access improvements are being made as part of the SkyTrain project. And there's also expected Federal Highway Administration improvements indicated in the pink dashed area that will be made as part of the regional spine study that is managed by the Maricopa Association of Governments. So all of these factors help define which land use types provide both synergy and compatibility, and we think it might include the opportunity for a mix of retail, office, hotel, and specialty uses. So now I'll ask Jay DeWitt to talk about some of the concepts and the process to date.
Thanks, Jim. Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee, you asked us last month for some kind of visual concepts of what this might look like when it's completed. And this is the West Ground Transportation Center that Jim had referred to earlier. We're looking at it as if we're hovering over Buckeye Road and looking to the south. You can see South Mountain in the distance there, and the West Ground Transportation Center is before us. The only building currently existing on this site is the one on the left nearest to us, and that's the Aviation office building. To the right is the hotel office, and there's some retail and food and beverage in that development also. This is all centered around the SkyTrain station. You can see there in the middle with the curved roof, and connected to the curved roof structure there via aerial bridges are all of the development that you see there, as well as the parking structure on the south. Looking south and east, the rendering focuses on the activity around the intersection of 24th Street and Buckeye. The corner currently houses the airport's bus maintenance operation that is currently taking people to and from the rental car center. And that will continue to remain in operation until the Phoenix SkyTrain operation comes through, and then we'll be able to close that. So we won't be able to build what's there on that northwest corner until that parking or the bus maintenance operation is complete. So as the area develops around it, the location has the potential to be a pretty dense commercial environment for residents and locals alike. With the SkyTrain connection, we see a great development opportunity on the site, and in order to confirm this vision of the near future, a request for information was issued to private developers. In the request for information, we needed to know what kind of developments concepts were viable on this site, were commercially viable. Second, who was best equipped to build these, and lastly, once it was built, who operates and maintains it. So that's what we were seeking to find out.
A question really quick. So out of all that response, was it focused on parking, or was the focus on developing that site in general?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Nowakowski, it was both. We went out looking for a development option and concepts for the entire site, which included parking on the south and then commercial, hotel, retail on the north.
What was the verbiage of the request? Was it, so the invitation or the verbiage for the
the
RFI, was it, what was sent out?
It was a request for information that asked developers to consider our idea and our vision for this area, which of course had the commercial there in that northwest corner, and then in the south is the parking, and asked for their input and concepts as response. We received 6 responses from some of the largest and most experienced developers and investors in the world. You see them listed up here. And the developers, investors, and joint ventures expressed strong interest in the West GTC concept and its potential. In addition to their interest in financing, building, and operating a new garage commercial development on the site, the respondents also asked about the city's willingness to enter into a long-term lease of the airport's other parking facilities. We considered 3 basic development options in order to arrive at a recommendation. The first option would be to invest approximately $200 million in a new parking facility there on Parcel B, plus another $100 million for a new commercial development on Parcel A. With the airport's $2 billion capital program that we're currently undertaking, which includes the Phoenix SkyTrain, Terminal 3 modernization, and a new concourse in Terminal 4, our capital dollars are really spread thin at the moment. We're taking on an awful lot, and to take on this additional development would undoubtedly stretch the airport's financial position. Owning and operating this new development would also expose the airport to the market risk that goes along with the parking and other commercial uses. Option 2 would have the airport pursue private investment for the new West GTC development and negotiate a parking concession. This would likely be a 30-year lease, which is typical for this kind of a development. And with the lease term, the airport's market risk would be significantly reduced, and this time of technological disruption and an unpredictable new sharing economy that would happen over the next 10 to 30 years. The lease would include upfront payments with annual lease payments at the end of the year, or at the end of the term. Those improvements would revert back to the city. Lastly, we considered avoiding the new development altogether, and this action would decrease the parking revenue below what we make today, because we're taking out that West Economy and Terminal 2 parking. So we would make less in parking revenue, and there's also a cost that goes along with the lost opportunity and lost revenue that involved in not pursuing the commercial development that we were proposing on the northwest corner that is presented by the new SkyTrain. After considering these 3 options, staff's recommendation is to pursue private investment in the West GTC development and negotiate a new parking concession. Larry Belinsky to my right is here to talk about the rationale behind this recommendation and some of the deal terms we'd expect to see in it.
We have a question. Vice Mayor?
Okay, I was just wanting to see what I think it's a second.
Those were the components of the second option.
Can you, that's what I wanted to read. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I myself and my firm have worked on about 15 of these types of development projects at airports and non-airport facilities across the country over the last 5 to 7 years. And we also represent 40 airports across the country. And what has been spoken about today is in line with what is happening at other airports around the country. For example, Nashville is just beginning the process of constructing a new hotel at its airport, as well as a new terminal building. JFK is in the middle of a construction of a hotel at its airport. LAX is doing a people mover train, consolidated rail, and 2 large parking structures, as well as LaGuardia and Kennedy Airport, which are doing new terminal developments and parking structures. So I think as we look at the opportunity that's before us, I just want to put everyone's mind at ease that this is happening across the country. And as it relates to what you are looking to do with your parking, it is in line and in fact a little bit ahead of the curve as to what is going on there. when we look at the parking concession aspect of this project, we're looking at a 30-year term with an upfront payment as well as ongoing lease payments. The objective here is to enhance the finances of the airport going forward and to preserve and protect future parking revenues. The facility will revert back to the airport at the end of the engagement, and we are looking at a kind of best value procurement. When I talk about best value, we are looking at, while price is an important factor, in a project like this where they will be designing, building, operating, and maintaining and being a partner of the airport for 30 years, we want to also look at the quality and the expertise of the entire team that would be bidding on this project. Have they done these projects in the past? Have they been successful? And how has the team worked in the past as it relates to these types of projects? So that's how we come up with the concept of the best value selection. On the commercial development concession, we are also looking at a 30-year term. We are looking for the airport to receive annual lease payments for the land which it is providing to the developer to operate the development. We are also looking at the improvements reverting back at the end of the agreement. And once again, we are looking at a best value. I think as Jay had mentioned earlier, there was significant interest during the RFI process, the request for information and conversations we had. And I think that is because the private sector has seen the viability of the opportunity here. And I think that because of that interest, the recommended structure going forward is the best one for the city and the airport.
So, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, we are requesting your recommendation to the City Council that we start the solicitation process by issuing a request for qualifications and then a subsequent revenue contract solicitation for the concession for these development opportunities. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilwoman Williams?
I do have a few questions. I believe I heard you say that as part of the development agreement, the successful person would need to maintain and do all repairs
Yes.
throughout that 30-year period. And I was wondering if you're going to have concessions or any type of retail operation or whatever, would they be required to follow the same practice that we do at the airport now, where it would be on like 10-year contracts, follow our process to make sure that local businesses are included, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, to Councilwoman Williams, yes.
Okay.
Try to get it down to a short answer, yes.
Because I mean, I think option 2 is great, and I believe that it is right for this expansion. I am a West Sider, so I appreciate your efforts to do this on the west side, and I think the hotels. It is a great idea. I read those notices every day from the airport magazines that say, you know, all the construction that's going on, and we want Sky Harbor to be competitive, to be modern. These are the amenities that we have to have. So thank you for pursuing this and bringing back this presentation, and I would move approval of option 2. Yourself.
We have a motion. We have a second yet?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We're still up for discussion, but we have one card. Why don't we get to that one card? Mr. Brent Kleiman. Welcome, Brent.
Good morning again. I came initially this morning just to say thank you to the Sky Harbor for everything that happened last night and tonight and tomorrow. But I was here last month when this came up, and I was glad it got continued. I guess I'm still concerned, and I don't believe this may properly deal with some of the issues that were raised by the council members last month in regards to the change of parking moving forward in 5 to 10 to 15 years and the need for more parking than there's there today. I mean, with the SkyTrain completion and the light rail connecting to it, I mean, this may be my amateur sense, and I understand we're going to get more flights into the airport, but I would think the need for parking lessens with all that mass transportation, as well as the influx of possible self-driving cars, Uber, Lyft, all these different services. So to develop a space to put more spaces than were there currently seems counterproductive to the limited space we have at Sky Harbor Airport. So I'm not sure asking for these submissions is quite, I don't know if we're ready yet to move to that next step. I think some more research has to be done, and I think development of the office and hotel or commercial space has to be included in the first step of the process. I know instead of a two-step process, that it seemed that they were looking at doing getting the garage open first and then attacking the development issues of that. So my feeling is I'm concerned that we're 30 days later, but near the same place we were 30 days ago, or however long the last meeting was. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of questions. In regards to parking, so this is, the project calls for new parking. I'll go to the first one. Some of the reports or the briefings that I've had due to TNCs and other factors, parking is down, but we need a new garage for just, I guess, getting ahead of the development. Do you want to clarify that?
Mr. Chairman, to members of the subcommittee, as we discussed in the presentation, as part of our development and our movement back to the west of the airport, we are actually taking 3,700 spaces out of our parking inventory today. And so the intent is that this development would try to replace those and then also have an opportunity to grow if demand warranted the addition beyond those 3,700 or so spaces. And once again, the benefit of this approach is that we will be transferring that market understanding to a private developer that will be very careful to make sure that they are developing a product that is financially successful. And they will monitor that market fluctuation, be it more transportation network companies, be it autonomous vehicles. That will all go into their factor of what they think the market demand is.
That's, okay. So the question comes up quite a bit. Why are we, investing in more parking when you have Uber and Lyft and others, people used to using, taking taxis and so on?
And Mr. Chairman, I would just add that the Uber, Lyft, autonomous vehicle is a risk at airports and major parking facilities all across this country now. And if you look at the projects that I just mentioned, all of them are replacing or adding to their existing parking stock at airports around the country. So it's not uncommon there is still going to be need for parking. Autonomous vehicles could be 10 years, 20 years away, but there is a great demand for parking, particularly at airports.
Okay, and so speaking of the parking, we're going to open this up, and it's part of this process. Are we going to do the same thing with the current parking agreements? Are we doing this all at in once? Is this one project?
Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, the staff recommendation is that we do a concession for the entire airport parking business.
Okay.
Very similar to how we concession all of our other consumer facing business lines. And we would concession out all of the existing parking as well as add this new garage development as part of that contract.
Okay. I'll shift over to the hotel. I know this is conceptual here, right? And I think that's part of, well, we just have to keep that in mind. The more we start talking about conceptual, now we're adding to it. But I will just say again, and I appreciate what you said about what you're looking for in terms of parking. We have to be forward thinking. We have to be thinking about, the cars that will be on the road in the future. Let's be a little forward-thinking. When we talk about the hotel, ideally, it's a hotel with meeting space. There's some great hotels, airport hotels in the country where people can fly in from everywhere, conduct their meetings, get their meals, do whatever it is that they do, never have to leave, and then get right back on a plane and go. And so we have a lot to offer here in Phoenix, obviously throughout Phoenix, but let's think about that. I think that's what people would appreciate as well, the business traveler. And I know it's just conceptual, but for Delta, can we have a little dog park?
That's right.
All right.
Why?
I want to
that
fit
was
Phoenix.
That was, I'm just, okay.
I want to fit Phoenix around there.
Fit Phoenix, maybe like we can roast some marshmallows on Friday nights. No, I'm joking.
Movie nights.
Again, it goes out back to the whole conceptual thing, but I think that should be a common sense, just like the parking. Let's think of the autonomous vehicles. When we think of a hotel, we should be thinking meeting space, right? It's just the common sense things that I know, I hope will not be missed.
I think, Mr. Chairman, you're 100% correct, and many of the groups that were mentioned that were interested in this did talk about different ways to commercialize that space, and they were talking about meeting space to make it kind of a destination for travelers to come and meet and things along those lines, and looking at the site as in a very entrepreneurial, innovative way.
Good. That's great. Councilman Nowakowski.
I was the person that basically asked for the continuance because I didn't see a retail or a hotel component to it. Can you go to slide number 4, please? Right there. If you go back to that one right there. So we actually have our offices right next to parcel A, right?
Yeah.
And how old is that building?
Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Nowakowski, the Aviation Department offices are that, to the right of that vertical arrow.
Right.
So the light shaded color facility. And that building became operational in November of 2016. I'm losing track of time here. November of 2016. And it's part of the Terminal 3 redevelopment because we used to be in Terminal 3, and
Right.
so our office facilities do not exist anymore. And so it was November of 2016.
I was just wondering because if we're going out there looking for proposals, I mean, I see a big parking lot behind that facility. I even see opportunities to build on that property to make it into a larger project than what we're looking at with more retail and opportunities for a hotel. Then the curve part of it, we have that's probably Greyhound, right? Bus stop right at the corner, and behind that would be the old rentals for, I think, budget rental cars.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Nowakowski, you're correct. To the west of 24th Street there and just south of Buckeye is the Greyhound bus facility. And then the brown shaded space that is below that is currently just some vehicular storage. But as part of the SkyTrain development, there is some support facilities that are necessary in that location for power and a power distribution center for the west side of the airport that would be in that area just south of the bus station.
And do we own that property?
Yes, sir.
So my question to you all is that if we're going to do a master plan, that we should look at all that property right around that SkyTrain stop, because we have an opportunity to really look at developing that whole corner. 30 years ago, family members and friends have been displaced in that area. And for the last 30 years, the city of Phoenix has been talking about a master plan. We've been having community meetings, and the community is kind of upset and angry and mad that we keep on giving them lip service and we haven't come up with a a master plan. Now we have a little master plan, and we finally got the Sacred Heart property settled. So we still have about 130 acres still on the west side that hasn't been developed, or there's not a master plan that I know of yet. So I like to see something that we can actually look at, some type of a master plan. I know that this started off as a parking garage, and because of myself and other colleagues pushing for a retail and hotel, that's why we're having this conversation. But I think we need to be visionaries. We need to start looking outside the box. And I believe that one of the problems we have in the city of Phoenix is we have great departments in our city. We have individuals that go out there and they're looking for businesses to move in our city. I was just wondering if there's any way or any how that we can actually partner up with our economic development department, because over the last 5 years, I've been working really, really close with them, just developing the whole downtown area. And I mean, look at what we've developed since I've been in office, just in my district alone. I think we have an opportunity here to really come up with a master plan, working along with the community and with the stakeholders of that area to come up with something great. But I believe that having airport people, and that's your expertise, and we have one of the best airports in the country, but we're not, the expertise of the airport isn't to develop property, and I don't want that to be your expertise. I want you to be an expert in making sure we get planes in safely, landed, and we take care of the operations at the airport. How can we use the different departments in our city to actually recruit high-end hotels that with meeting spaces, conference rooms, good retail that would take care of that whole, it's a desert when it comes to grocery stores out there. The nearest grocery store is, I'm not sure how far, but I mean, things like that, that's a big need for that area. And it'll be probably Fry's in downtown, right? So I know that people are waiting. They said that the city just comes in and we buy out their homes, but that's about all we do with them. So now with CPLC having the old Sacred Heart, we're starting to have some positive conversations. I believe we can take it to a whole different level with really working with the different departments we have, maybe even with the streets and parks and all of us coming together and coming up with a great plan for that whole area, and allowing you all to work along with those departments and those experts to develop that area. I know the expertise of you all are the airport, getting people in and out, that's a big concern, and I understand that. And parking is a big concern, how fast we can get people to park to the gate. That's the number one concern for you all. But I think another concern for the city of Phoenix is how can we generate income, and especially taxable income, to support all the different services we have also. So I think we have a great opportunity. I want to thank you for rethinking this. I'd like to thank you for bringing the RFIs. These RFIs proposals are incredible. I mean, we have 3 of them that are just focusing on a parking lot, but the other 3 are really talking about parking, hotel, and retail. And one of them, I mean, most of them are saying that there's no upfront cost for the city of Phoenix or the airport. So they're taking the financial risk behind it all. It's not the same situation we had with the Sheraton. This is something totally different. We're providing the land and making sure that they have the infrastructure like water and electricity going to the location. And I think it's a win-win for the city of Phoenix, for the customers at our airport, and for those individuals that live within that mile radius of this site. So I want to make sure that in the RFP, it just doesn't say, like what we had with the RFI, that it's West Ground Transportation Center Development Opportunity. I like to make sure that it talks about hotel, retail, and parking somehow, so people have that bigger vision and they're not just.
Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Nowakowski, thank you. And that is our recommendation to you, is that we would go out and solicit for all of those developments.
So can we go back to the recommendation? So the recommendation is to include, okay, so it's to include the parking garage, hotel, retail, and other commercial uses.
I don't know.
My question about the airport parking concessions. I understand that those that are applying for this RFP would put the money up front for the west side economy parking garage. Currently, the way the parking concession happens is that a renewal or a new proposal every 10 years, I want to say. So will that still be maintained as part of our parking concessions, that every 10 years, because what we're doing is bundling our parking concession with this one proposer. So, and that proposal will be with 30 years. So that's a concern of mine. Or what is the financial value in this?
And let me kind of do it at a broader sense, and then Mr. Belinsky can answer some more details. But Mr. Chairman, to Vice Mayor Pastor, the recommendation in front of council would be a long-term parking concession and the development of that additional parking garage. So it would not be every 10 years, because currently we do not have a parking concession. Currently, we have a management contract where we concession out every few years for someone to supply the staff to operate the parking for the city. And we essentially, the city of Phoenix, is the operator of the parking. What we are doing with this recommendation is changing that to a long-term revenue contract concession where the private sector will operate, will finance, operate, maintain, take all of the risk associated with the entire parking concession for that 30-year period, and also make that near $200 million capital investment in that new West Side parking facility.
I'm trying to get this right. So chairman to the vice mayor, I guess. Is that the way that the vernacular is? I think there are a couple of things that make the 30-year concession agreement a very good opportunity for the city and the airport. Number one, the 30-year concession allows for the development team to make an upfront payment to the airport for the right to operate over the 30-year period. That could be a significant amount of money that would be paid to the airport, which can be used for future development. So the airport might not necessarily have to go out and issue debt because it would have this money available to it. The second component of the 30-year concession allows for the airport to protect the earnings that it is earning now on an annual basis, because that would be part of the financial structure of the deal, that the revenues, the net revenues that the airport is earning now would be preserved for that 30-year period. Number three, which is important, is you are transferring the demand risk to the private sector. So by locking in your annual revenues, you are getting that payment from the developer if one person parks there or 1 million people park there. So again, it's transferring that demand risk, which is important. And the other issue I would raise is it has a team that is singularly focused on parking. Their whole business is the development, the operation, and the maintaining of parking, so that they can make the necessary investments in technology and the ability to enhance the on-airport parking to make it as profitable as possible, both for the airport and for the development team. So those are the benefits that you would derive from a 30-year concession.
I would just also add a reminder, this gives you the ability to evaluate it. We're not saying we're absolutely doing this. This is going to get responses back to be evaluated. If it doesn't do as well or better for the city, we're not locked into it. So it's simply issuing the call for responses.
Yeah, Councilwoman?
Jim, and as part of this, does the airport have control over what the retail is and what the commercial uses are, just like we do if in any zoning case, depending on the category of zoning, so that you know what's going to be there, and as times change and standards change, we are socially acceptable?
Mr. Chairman, to Councilwoman Williams, any retail or establishments would be socially acceptable in that location, or they would not be accepted by the airport.
Okay, so
It's
you
subject
can.
to your,
It would
your
be subject to
call.
our approval.
Okay, now, my second question is, parking rates, would they still be under your approval? I mean, would they be standard, whether it's east side or west side?
No.
Mr. Chairman, to Councilwoman Williams, as part of this solicitation and the concession agreement, there would be a provision in that agreement with respect to parking rates, and also in terms of, over the term of the agreement, how those rates would be controlled in terms of escalating even over the term of the agreement. So, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilman Nowakowski?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I was just wondering, in that recommendation, is there any way to add in working along with our Economic Development Department? Because, I mean, they're out there on a daily basis recruiting individuals. I mean, we're going on a trip to Mexico, just trying to get some tech business into the city of Phoenix. So they're on a daily basis out there looking and searching and getting calls. I think it'll be a great opportunity, just like what they're doing with the Sacred Heart, that this might be a great opportunity to work in conjunction or.
Mayor, Chairman, Councilman Nowakowski, we will ensure that the Economic Development Department is part of the development of the RFP with Mr. Bennett's staff, as well as on the evaluation panel. So we get that connectivity to Ms. Mackey and her staff. We'll just formalize that. It's happening now, but we'll make sure that happens.
All right, thank you.
Are we ready?
Ready when you are.
Okay.
Oh, are we? Okay, good. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 13, Terminal 3 Food and Beverage and Retail Revenue Contract Solicitation, Award Recommendation.
Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, we're very excited to be here today to make our recommendations with respect to the portfolio of concessions for the new Terminal 3 that is under development currently. I'm joined here today by Charlene Reynolds, our Assistant Aviation Director, and Chris Madsen, Deputy Aviation Director for Business and Properties, to make the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee. This next presentation is very exciting for Terminal 3 and a major milestone for the Terminal 3 modernization project. We are here to request your recommendation to award the new concession agreements for Terminal 3 at Sky Harbor. Before I begin, I would like to say thank you to all of you, the rest of the City Council members, our executive leadership team, to help us in their support and guidance on this project. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank all of the staff members that have worked on this project over the last several years to get us to this point. The Terminal 3 modernization project has been making great progress over the last few years. We have been working very closely with the design team to create concession locations to serve the needs of the passengers and create an award-winning experience and program. In the spring of last year, we were here to request your recommendation to issue the revenue contract solicitation, and you approved it for 4 contracting opportunities, 2 for food and beverage and 2 for retail. The packages were developed to include locations equally dispersed throughout the terminal building. All of the locations are post-security, with one exception of one location being pre-security in the ticket lobby and baggage claim area. There were 11 responsive, excuse me, submittals received from 6 different respondent teams, which included many local partnerships and concepts. All of the proposals were evaluated by a selection panel who evaluated each proposal, and based on the evaluation criteria that was set out in the solicitation, and interviews were conducted with every proposal that we received. In 2016, the Terminal 2 cells were $13.7 million, and in Terminal 3, the cells were $18.9 million, with the total over $32 million. Upon final completion of all of the concession locations in Terminal 3 and all of the locations for all the airlines being relocated into this new terminal, the anticipated cells on an annual basis is $63 million. That is over $400 million in gross sales over the term of these contracts. That's $50 million to the Aviation Department over the same time period. Now I would like to present to you the contract award recommendations. These contract award recommendations were posted and the protest period ended without any protests. All of the respondents, along with many of their business partners, are here with us today in the audience. So now, the contract award recommendations for food and beverage, Package 1, is for Host International Incorporated with the following concepts: The Parlor, Starbucks, Joyride Tacos, Postino's, Shake Shack, Mustache Pretzels, Panera Bread Company, and Ace Vending. Their local partners are Kind Hospitality and Emerging Domestic Markets. For food and beverage, package number 2, the recommendation is for SSP America with the following concepts: Uberita Fresh Mex, The Habit Burger Grill, Original Chop Shop, Christopher's Crush, Leone's Focaccia, Phoenix L Brewing Central Kitchen, True Burger Company, Ajo Al's Mexican Cafe, Crave Grounds, The Tavern, and Pete's Coffee with Casa Unlimited Retail. Their local partners are Mosby and Company and Casa Unlimited. Now moving on to retail, the package number 1 recommendation is for HG PHX T3 Retailers 2017 joint venture with the following concepts: Sony Tech on the Go, Indigenous Mosaic, Ironwood by Hudson, Giant Coffee, Discover Arizona, Passage by Hudson, Johnston and Murphy, Tech on the Go, House of Marley. Their local partners are Cambios y Cervecias and the Levitt Group. Moving to package number 2 for retail, the award recommendation is for Stellar Retail Group with the following concepts: Best of the Valley Market with Starbucks, Stellar News and Market, Lolly and Pops, In Motion, Travel Outfitters, Starbucks, Soul Shades, and L'Occitane. Their local partners are Lamb Holdings and Casa Unlimited. With that, the Aviation Department requests your recommendation to the full City Council to award Terminal 3 concession agreements as presented. I'm happy to answer your questions.
I have a couple of cards. Let me get to the cards and then we'll go right to the questions, if that's okay. Lachelle Mangum. Welcome, Mrs. Mangum.
Thank you very much. Chairman Venezuela, Councilman Williams, Vice Mayor Pastor, and Councilman Nowakowski, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you as a small business owner, President and CEO of Lamb Holdings, and a joint venture partner with Stellar Retail Group, as a successful proposer in Terminal 3, that the hard work that you have put in to ensure the inclusion of small business has been very, very beneficial. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to each and every one of you, as well as to the aviation staff for the hard work that they've put in making sure that this Terminal 3 RCS was very successful. And I'm just happy and excited to be a part of it. And I just wanted to say thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. I have a question real quick for you. I think you need to brag about everything you do for the community, because I think that's what's so important about having local businesses and small businesses participate, because the better off that they do, the more they give to our community. I know that from sports leagues to helping out in Levine Barbecue to all that.
Right.
I just really want to thank especially all the small businesses. And it's really important that you give back and you support the community, because you were given a chance by the city of Phoenix. Now we really want you to be good partners within the community.
Absolutely. We have completely immersed ourselves in the community involvement with Big Brothers Big Sisters, for instance, as mentors. Levine Barbecue, as you mentioned, we have been partners with Levine Barbecue for the last 4 years. The Refuge Coffee, Food, and Wine is a big part of supporting Levine Barbecue, which we're excited to be a part of and sponsor. Yeah, there's just many involved things that we do with the community with mentorship and
Football clinics and
football,
all that.
yeah, all the sporting events. Absolutely. So we're very, very excited to be a part of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gregory Torres. Oh, ran out of time, Gregory, sorry.
It's not the first time, Councilman. If I may, I just want to take an extra minute if I can. You keep speaking to the small business component at the airport. You should be excited about the fact, you might not remember, about 13 plus years ago, then Director Kreider and Paul Blue joined the Ninth Circuit Court in looking at the disparity when it came to construction. And it was a visionary thing for them to do, and they included the food and beverage and concessions because they wanted to see how they stood up to what the program was at the time, and happy to report they were overwhelmingly above and beyond any percentages. So we became race and neutral gender, so it's a credit to, again, to the airport. Part of the reason I decided to come speak to today is to really speak to the great program that the airport has under the direction of Mr. Bennett, Ms. Charlene Reynolds, Ms. Matson, Ms. Paula Kuchars, and more importantly, a key component that I think made it successful for a lot of the small business was Ms. Valerie Churchwell did 2 seminars. She did one on how to do business with the Sky Harbor, and she did a speed dating event, which I thought was incredible, where primes got to meet small businesses and et cetera. Though we were not successful, Paradis Lagardère, I'm here to congratulate all the proposers on their successes on food and beverage and on retail. We're excited to be a part of the airport. We will be back. The good news, I'll be there until I'm 75. I'm looking at an opportunity coming forth here soon to take me to my 85th birthday when I'll retire. So I just want to say thank you for the great effort that they do, and looking forward to retiring at Sky Harbor. Thank you.
Greg, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Mr. Torres, you come back. I thought you were going to protest the process there for a second.
No, it's not in my DNA.
But Greg, you've been a strong advocate ever since I've been on the council for over 10 years on the minority participation, small business participation, and the importance of giving back to the community. I know that you've not only practiced that, but you also have become a mentor for a lot of those small businesses in our airport right now. Also, the great programs that have come out of this, from the Friends of Sky Harbor that reaches out to the community. I think it's really important that you let these small businesses that are new at the airport understand about the partnership of getting involved with Friends of Sky Harbor and also participation in the community, if you could, in a minute or so.
Well, the bottom line is that, you know, that I had a great mother and a father. My mother cared about community. My father was about, I don't mind helping community, but can we help our family? So it was a balance, a yin and yang thing. But really, it's key to me. I think before I joined the Parody Shops, the first question I gave to Greg Paradis is, what are we going to do in the community? And I needed that answer before I said I'd join them as a partner. I think it's paramount for all of us as companies to give back. It needs to be a part of our DNA. And again, because of the airport's position, though they don't put set-asides, they strongly encourage, in fact, Paul Blue is the last one to use that word. No, they don't use it. Small business be included, and so it's reflective in the package you have before you. But I think we need to be engaged. We have to give back. We owe that to humanity. I mean, that's just what we have to do. So I'm grateful for doing that. We support the community. We'll continue to do that. My children are continuing that legacy on behalf of their grandmother and grandfather. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
Mr. Torres, I class act. you just mentioned that you didn't win. You're part of being part of the airport, and you congratulated those that came out on top in this process. And it's a very, very class act, and I appreciate the comments.
Listen, you can come and complain, but it doesn't do any good. The reality is, we know we fell short. We found out, I think, what we need to do better. The airport is great at sharing, and so we'll come back. I mean, again, the good news, the airport's not going anywhere for a while, per Mr. Bennett, at least 20 more years. So I'm excited again for everything that happens on behalf of Torres International and Paradis Lagardère. So thank you for that.
Motion.
I was going to call his name out one more time, just so.
Okay, well, wait till he sits down.
No, he's.
How do you really
great.
feel?
All right, we have a,
He didn't
that was the
hear
last
you.
card, so.
I move approval. I appreciate all the people who have participated in this process, whether you're a winner or not. I think that I'm very proud of Sky Harbor. And I remember when we went to court and proved to everybody in the world how great you are and the accomplishments you've made. So congratulations to you. I know you will work hard. I'm sorry you didn't bring some samples today, but I move approval.
A second.
We have a second. Vice Mayor, do you have comments?
I do have comments.
I knew it.
Yeah, I can't leave without comments. I just think this is probably the first time in my time sitting here that I hadn't heard about a protest. So congratulations on that. Secondly is I think the theme, as you've heard throughout today, has been really pushing local businesses. I personally think that when our money stays within our economy, we create jobs within our city of Phoenix, but we also do great mentorship and giving back to our community. And each and every one of us is part of the city, of the community, and rely on our partners to help us when we're involved in different functions or activities. And I can say last year, maybe it was last year, 2 years ago, I was placed with the Big Brother, Big Sister charge about creating mentorship along with the mayor and finding people to mentor young men of color in the Big Brother, Big Sister. And I do want to give thanks to Greg and Kurt Magnum for sticking with it and not only just mentoring students at a school, but then went on to take on additional mentees. And so I think that demonstrates the power of community and the influence local business has within the community. Also want to say there's many other organizations that benefit. MLK benefited, Valle del Sol benefits, the other one is the chamber benefits with these local businesses being part of it. And so I think you see the need and the push of making sure that we keep it local. One of the experiences that I had about 2 years ago is I went to New York to take my son to Cooperstown, and it was his first visit to New York. And we had the pleasure of staying in Manhattan and then went on to Cooperstown. And returning back to the airport, there was a Shake Shack. And we were looking for a restaurant, and there was a Shake Shack. And I said, oh, okay. And he's like, no, I don't want Shake Shack. And I said, why not? It's originally from New York. And he says, well, we can get it at home. So I think one of the benefits of making sure that we have local eateries here in our Sky Harbor is that the fact that they can't get it anywhere else, and they're attracted to our airport to go look for that restaurant. And I think that story is very telling to me because he now has experienced it in Phoenix, and so now it's like, okay, you don't go to New York to look for that deli or that restaurant. And so I think that's a important message to send, to know that even though we want to expand and we have corporate, we also have our great local eateries that should be part of our tapestry of the airport. So I want to thank you for doing a great job on this proposal and moving this forward.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. I'll just quickly add, in terms of small business, you know, you walk to the airport, you see a number of great small businesses. I think it's evidence, and we're going to continue moving in that direction. And it's evidence that shows that when the city of Phoenix spends tax dollars, we are also shopping local. The U.S. Department of Transportation reported a couple of years ago that in fiscal year 12, there were 14 small businesses introduced into the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, which are the most of any airport in the nation. And so we're earning that title of being the #1 airport when it comes to small business. Now, again, always looking for room for improvement. And so I appreciate the process. I think it's incredibly exciting. And that's it. We'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. We're moving on to item 14, the FAA flight path update. Mr. Bennett, do you have anything for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We will, in a moment, do a very brief update on what's going on. And as the council, I know, is aware, last night was the first of the 3 FAA public workshops, and we're here to report on the status of the flight path changes.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett, Chairman Valenzuela, members of the subcommittee. Very quickly, since the last update, the FAA has populated the project website, which you can see at the bottom of the screen here, with the workshop handouts, all of the draft NEPA documents, including the draft CADX and noise screening and historic property coordination that we'll get into in a minute here. All the public comment form material in the handouts have been provided in both English and Spanish. So I mentioned the historic property coordination. Throughout this process, the FAA has been coordinating with the city historic preservation officer, as well as the state historic preservation officer and the tribal historic preservation officer. Last week, all parties met with both the Gila River Indian community as well as the Salt River Pima Indian Maricopa community, and started to present the step 1 and step 2 actions as they're outlining the joint petition. Those meetings have gone well. The coordination and the communication will continue throughout the public comment period, which of course goes until the 16th. So getting to today, yesterday was the first of 3 community meetings, open houses facilitated by the FAA. Last night's meeting was held at Maryville High School. We don't have an official count yet, but generally I'd put it around 50, 60, that ballpark. Tonight will be Cesar Chavez, and then on Thursday night will be Horizon, all beginning at 5 o'clock. You'll recall, by gentle reminder, at last month, the subcommittee encouraged the city to request additional meetings from the FAA. Staff, as well as council district offices, made those requests, as well as the historic property petitioners, historic neighborhood petitioners, I should say, and the FAA declined. They were not able to provide a 4th meeting, so these will be the 3 open houses for the step 1 action. Following the public comment period, which again ends on the 16th, the FAA will review feedback and categorize the feedback in terms of how they could address those comments in the step 2 process with additional meetings and additional reviews. The FAA's goal is still to implement the new departure routes for the old departure corridors by April 1st. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. We do have one card, Mr. Brent Kleinman.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the members of the Sky Harbor Airport, first of all, thank you all very much for organizing and putting last night together. I know the FAA set up the shell and you guys actually made it work well, so thank you for the hard work you all put into that as well. Just as a guideline, I left there around 6:15, 6:30. They had checked in a little over 70 people, so there was a good turnout there for that. expecting larger numbers tonight and tomorrow, I think. Quiet, huh? Okay. So, okay. Just want to make sure that, let's see. Hi. It's working. Okay. So just want to make sure that those comments get shared with the rest of the party so that we all are aware of what's going on. Because in the step 2 of this process, the comments that are made last night, tonight, tomorrow night are going to be so important to ensure that the final flight paths that get implemented are the flight paths we want as a city and community. So again, I know this has been 3 years of hard work and frustrated neighbors coming up and yelling and screaming and talking, and I just want to today say thank you for everything the city's done to support this, and how this process is going has been good. I wish the FAA could explain and clarify things the same way the city does, because there were a lot of people that walked out of the meeting last night confused, but I think the city will do a good job to continue to spread that information and keep us all informed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiman. Okay, that is the, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, don't get frustrated. So can you explain the second step? Because I think there needs to be clarity for the neighbors, just as Mr. Kleiman has stated. And how will we see the community input, and how will we be informed with it, about it? And then what will be our next steps with FAA?
Mr. Chairman, Vice Mayor Pastor, great question. Thank you for them. So the step 1 community meetings are to talk about the step 1 action, going back to the old departure corridor, but also, as outlined in the joint petition, to ask the greater community about any airspace issues they would have had from the 2014 FAA RNAV implementation. And that could be approaches, departures, east flow, west flow, 4 miles from the airport or 10 miles from the airport. And the entire point is to get that feedback to generate the step 2 process. So it's critical that the community members comment about anything they might have an issue with from that 14 action now. That drives the step 2 process. The step 2 process, number of meetings, the layout, whether or not it's a study or an environmental assessment, will all depend on the type of feedback the community gives the FAA during these 2 weeks. That all said, to the question of how will the comments be shared with the community, typically the FAA would provide verbatim comments from agency stakeholders and then aggregate community comments by type. So we're opposed to this specific route, or our neighborhood had this particular issue. They may or may not actually provide the personal, this person made this comment on this date. That information, of course, is always available through a FOIA request. They would scrub out kind of, personal ID information, but we would expect them to aggregate comments by type and then provide itemized responses on the website during the step 1 process.
So did I just hear that this is the period where community needs to make comments to the FAA? Because I don't think that's clear across the board, in the sense of, we know we have our 3 meetings, but this is the first time I clued into they need to make comments in order for FAA to review them. Okay.
And Vice Mayor, if that has not been clarified in the past, we take responsibility for that. But certainly in speaking with the community members that have attended and the ones that have called us already, we go out of our way to make that point, that you're needing to look at both types of issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so
Mr.
much.
Chair.
Councilman Nowakowski.
On this topic, one of the things that I've been hearing from last night's meeting is the new routes of our highways. We have the 202 going into South Phoenix. I know that the old path was down 51st Avenue. people were asking that if they can include that. I was saying, well, they need to go out to the meetings and voice their opinion. And the same thing when the Maryville area, going down that 202 instead of using, flying over the community. So is there a way for us as a city of Phoenix to actually, I think the trust level out there, they're not trusting the FAA. And I'm thinking that, is there a way for us to hold a community meeting where it's more hosted by myself or one of my colleagues and gather that information and give it to them?
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, staff is always available to participate with a council district community meeting and provide that information. And it's not a real challenge to show the freeway proposal over the FAA's maps. We can provide that.
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the council. I would just like to add that these meetings are open to everybody from any area, but comments can be submitted online through February 16th. And it's very important that everybody understands that, because you don't have to come to the meeting in order to submit comments. So we want to make sure that they know that skyharbor.com has a link directly to the place where every community member can make comments that will be considered.
Great point.
With that, is there a way for us to get that information out there, maybe through a water bill or the city service? I mean, there's a trust level that they have with us already. And basically, Deb's been great working with the community over the last couple of years, and there's a trust level there and the integrity that we've built with the community. I think we can actually draw up a lot of people to fill out that survey on social media.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Zerker, do you?
I was just going to say, we have more immediate ways than the water bill. The water bill is actually done 60 days ahead, so that is too late. But probably more effective are the social media tools of Sky Harbor, of the city, and actually your council offices are really effective with your mailing lists, and your newsletters are probably as effective as anything else we can do. So we'll make sure that your offices all have that link both through Sky Harbor and directly to the FAA, and then you can get it to your constituents.
And I would recommend Nextdoor, since that's one of the tools that we purchased.
Great point. Mr. Kleiman, did you have something?
Just listening to this, I just had one offer that I'd like to make. We have a meeting scheduled at the Valley Garden Center on February 13th. If any or all of the members of the City Council would like to include Sky Harbor or residents to come and do something either prior or after, we already have that space reserved and paid for, where we would welcome the addition of having some sort of FAA workshop, open house before or after that.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the offer. Okay, we don't have cards, and so future agenda items?
I would like to put a future agenda item.
Okay.
And that would be the next 5-year plan of all the property around the airport and what what is the future going to look like of that whole area and all the properties. I've been working with United Business Association and heard lots of, I don't know what term to use, anger regarding all the property around their property and not being able to develop and build a really unified business sector around the light rail. And so I would like to see what the master plan is for the next 5 years.
Okay. Councilman Alkowski?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask staff to look into, or even sit down with ASU and look at the possibility of building a new home for the Thunderbird School of Global Management. We've worked really great in the past with the law school. How can we sit down and look at what opportunities and what's needed to actually make that happen in the near future? We don't have to.
Councilman, I assume that you're talking about the graduate part of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the other's coming
The
to the
undergrads
West Campus.
goes to ASUS,
Yeah.
but the graduate program.
The graduate program, correct.
And the executive program.
The executive program.
Okay.
That's where we should tie in affordable
Any
housing.
other comment or
Housing for
items?
the kids.
All right, thank you for coming out. This meeting is adjourned.